to see you, Jeff.
Hey, Ricardo, good to see you.
Hey, Daryl.
Hello.
We'll give it another minute. Perfect. So could I ask Daryl and Alex to enable your video? Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you also to Alex from the routing company for the short-term switch, and we are really happy to have you. And with that, I am opening it up to Daryl to give you an introduction. We'll then move on to a discussion amongst the three of you around bus and the future of urban bus and its routing and its operations and optimization. And then we'll go over to the Q&A from the audience. And yeah, really excited for this. Thank you so much for being here.
Action. Good afternoon, everyone. Those that don't know, my name is Daryl Eyrich. I'm going to be serving as moderator today of the discussion. Just to give you a small snippet of who I am. I'm the former head of New York City's bus and paratransit operations. I just completed in 2019. Can't believe it's almost 5 years now. A 34-year career where I started as a bus operator and back in 2010 landed what I would call a dream job as head of the, what sometimes I would call myself a three-headed monster, running 3 separate agencies as a president. It was a phenomenal position, and I'm actually delighted to be here today. You know, one little joke I would leave you with, many of my colleagues said I had an omen or a crystal ball because in 2019 I retired. It seemed like the right time to go for me. But they said, you must have known something because 6 or 7 months later, we were in the pandemic. And just to set some context for today, a lot of our discussion will be somewhat related to that because as you all know, being part of this industry, the pandemic highlighted and in many ways exacerbated many of the challenges that we all faced pre-pandemic. You know, those things are such things as finances, you know, ridership, you know, service delivery, as well as climate change. So, you know, that'll kind of set the framework. I would just ask at this point that, you know, I just want to highlight the fact that I believe we have 3 heavyweights in the room today, right? We have Alex Waller of the routing company, Catherine Bush Felton, Chief of Staff of New Orleans Rapid Transit Authority, and Jeff Hyatt, Senior Vice President of Transformation at WMATA, Washington Metro. I would ask each of you to give just a quick snippet of your background and who you are, and then we'll follow up with questions from me. I'll do 1 round, and then we'll take it from there and let it evolve into a conversation and discussion. And we'll start with you, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex Waller. I'm one of the co-founders of the routing company. We work with transit agencies to power the future of public transit by enabling multimodal transportation solutions, and in particular on-demand mobility systems, so dial-a-ride, as well as app booking systems. And yeah,
Got it.
before the routing company, I was a PhD student at MIT CSIL working on exactly the same thing as what we do as a company.
Phenomenal. Catherine?
Hi, everyone. Sorry. My name is Catherine Bush-Felton. I am the Chief of Staff at the New Orleans Regional Transit Authority. My background is actually not necessarily a transportation. I started in transportation with Sound Transit back in 2023 when I finished grad school working on the Link Light Rail construction. So I started on that big project and it went through my neighborhood. It was the Save Our Valley, no train this way. It was my neighborhood growing up. So when I got out of college, my master's program, it was right about that time. And I worked in government communications and government affairs, and saw that the RTA needed some help. They were transitioning from becoming a delegated management model. So they were pretty much run by a French company who was great and helped the agency recover from Katrina. But there came a time when it was time for the RTA to put his big boy pants on and become a public agency. So I came in because I am kind of a government ninja to help build the startup government agency. And here we are. Then shortly after I came, actually in 2019, is when I started. COVID happened quite right almost immediately after I started. So have a lot of learnings from that experience.
Wow. That's really good. We have some real key questions for you. I'll get to everyone, but Catherine, just to focus in something for you to think about. When you talk about workforce, let's talk about boots on the ground and the reality of bus operators, dispatchers, and the general workforce. Considering your position at Norda, if I may, Norda, what can you tell us about how changes in customer expectations, ridership, but particularly workforce expectations, shape your processes and around talent acquisition, scheduling, and retention?
Oh, wow. So we are a legacy system. So with that, we have our bus system, and we have great operators that show up every day. We have a hugely transit reliant community. Our economy in New Orleans is very service sector. So we have a lot of lower income and a lot of people that work second and third shifts. So we have a lot of people that rely on our service, and we have a lot of bus drivers that are really responsive and provide excellent customer service. We don't necessarily have such a problem with bus operators anymore because we pay really well. We pay in the Southeast and the Southwest among the highest. But where we have challenges is on maintenance for our buses. I think a lot of agencies are in the same place where we order these new flyer buses, and our mechanics have been with us for a long time. So there wasn't training, there wasn't mechanism to train them on the new buses. And on top of that, we have the historic St. Charles streetcar line. And many of you know that is a historic line. It's the Thomas Purley trains were brought into service in 1923 and 1924. So, and shortly after they were brought online to our transit line, the train company shifted to running buses. So shortly after that, our maintenance workers at our Carrollton barn completely fabricate and build these trains, build our streetcars. And to learn if there's no school, you have to learn from the guys. And most of the guys that work in our shops are at retirement age or long past retirement age. We have folks that are working for 40 years. And it's really hard to get people engaged and wanting to work in the trades. And it's not like you can like I said, you can't go to school to learn how to build a streetcar. And it takes about 2 years of apprenticing to learn how to do everything on the streetcar, because there may be the brakes go out, you fix the brakes at a certain time of year, and then it's other major components. it just takes a long time. And so that's where we're struggling. We're really trying to figure out how we can get the workforce to manage the streetcar lines, our maintenance on our buses, and our overhead catenary lines, which are also pretty unique and historic.
Wow. Yeah, it's that resonates. It seems like the same challenges, same problems across the horizon. I stepped out of line a little bit. I'll move over to you, Jeff. Could you just give us a quick introduction, and then I'll move with a question to you as well.
Yes, thanks, Daryl, and thanks, Ricardo, for inviting the invitation to be part of this panel. Really appreciate it. So, as Daryl mentioned, my name is Jeff Hyatt, Senior Vice President of Bus Transformation here at WMATA in DC. I've been in transit for about 20 years. I'm a civil engineer with transportation focus, so I've kind of been in the world my whole career since I got out of college. But spent about 15 years with the association that represents the transit industry, the American Public Transportation Association. Been a consultant and also worked at Capital Metro in Austin, Texas, and now here at WMATA in DC. So I'm happy to be part of this panel and talk about transit and bus in particular.
Wow, thank you for that. I like to believe we have three major heavyweights, as I said earlier, right? So I'm really excited. So I'll start with you, Jeff. Thank you, Catherine, for answering your first question. I'll start with you now, Jeff, and I'm coming back to you, Alex. So not forgotten. From a 10,000-foot view, so to speak, Jeff, as you lead many endeavors under the Better Bus Initiative, such as transition to zero-emission bus operations, but also rider experience and safety, what are the primary challenges you face in scaling up such initiatives? And how can other cities learn from your experience and similarly advance their operations towards sustainability?
Thanks. It's a lot in that question, Daryl, but appreciate the opportunity to answer it. So we do have something that's called the Better Bus Initiative, Better Bus Program here, and that is the kind of the umbrella of that covers a bunch of different initiatives and projects to really not only enhance our operations of a bus, but also improve the customer experience too. And all of this is in alignment with our strategic transformation goals that we have established a little over a year ago. And what makes it, I think, in one sense for us here at WMATA, that makes it easier to implement a lot of these different things is the support we have from our general manager and the executive team, as well as our board. I think, if we can give any kind of silver lining to the pandemic, which is really hard to do, I recognize that. But one thing is it showed that the bus mode is integral to keeping our cities moving. We really did have to rely on that to get the folks around to really our work, the people that provide all of our services, our nurses, our doctors, our people that work at our grocery stores, other maintainers of different parts of our industry that didn't have the option to be at home. And so it became such an integral part of us being able to maintain our lives during the pandemic. And we had to improve how we managed that system then. And then that led us to creating some how we also look at our service and provide our service to our customers here. I think in DC, like a lot of cities that have rail, a lot of focus goes on rail. It certainly is the backbone of us, but the ridership is fairly equal. We're roughly 55% rail, 45% of our riders are bus, and that kind of some on the weekends it can actually reverse. So bus ridership is very much an integral part of our service, and therefore having the executive leadership buy into that is really important, because not only do they recognize and help set some of these goals and metrics, but then they also give us the support to be able to move towards them. So we have the resources that we need for some of the capital outlay. You mentioned our zero emission bus. as an expensive transition, but it supports our not only our internal sustainability goals, but our region's sustainability goals, and the customer experience, and being able to implement new technologies and think progressively. Like, how are we going to make the customer experience the best that it can be? How do we provide real-time information so that they don't have to rely on schedules that sometimes are hard to stick to, as best as we try. But if we can give them real-time information and they know that they can rely on that, they will be able to utilize the service more because they know that they can trust us, and have the bus there when it's needed. So just kind of, I guess, in essence, is just kind of back to, we really just have the entire organization top down, who really have embraced our Better Bus initiative, and really are able to enact and implement a lot of these initiatives and these projects, and have the support there to be able to do so.
Well, that hit home. That really does. It's something that you said that really strikes me. Again, I completed my career with one of the largest legacy systems in the world. And while we had a 6,000 bus fleet, 18,000 strong workforce, we were almost, I wouldn't say we were treated like second class citizens, but the organizations tend to be rail centric. Mm-hmm. And bus, at least pre-pandemic, did not get the attention that it really needed, at least from my vantage point. And it was a fight every day. And it was a part of my personal and professional mission to drive that home. We did get the support. It was very begrudging, but I think, like, to your point, the pandemic, if there are some silver linings to it, that may be one of them. Thank you, Jeff. That was really, really good. Alex, I got one for you. So first of all, I guess I would like to know a little bit more about your company and the work that you guys do. And this platform of Pingo, I believe it is. And mm-hmm. I understand you were a co-founder. And while you have the discussion, can you talk a little bit about fleet commingling? I'm just becoming aware of that terminology, and I think it would be good for all to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah. So just a bit of background on the routing company. We were founded in 2019 because of this awesome work we were doing at MIT that showed we could service all of Manhattan's taxi demand using 80% fewer vehicles by having riders share rides. Now, that's technology in some model and requires, operational expertise to execute. And what we noticed is that branching out into providing a system that can empower operations teams, unlock flexible service design, provide the data necessary to make informed decisions, and to promote rider dignity. We've been moving from just our technology stack to really providing a holistic product containing a rider app, driver app, fleet management dashboard, call center access, and now a web booking platform. So trying to make, the dispatch operations for shuttle routes, flex routes, DRT, making all of that extremely easy to use and accessible to riders and administrators alike. And now for commingling, it's a really, really good question. What we've noticed in the United States is that supply for vehicle operators when we were approaching a transit agency can be extremely limited, almost a zero-sum game by taking supply from a service that is operating and trying to put that bring that supply into a more dynamic mode of transportation. So we believe that commingling, which for folks that don't know, is using on-demand paratransit vehicles or DRT paratransit vehicles to offer rides to those who don't meet the ADA guidelines. So just general purpose transportation. So how can you maintain the level of service required by the ADA while still having that supply service passengers that don't fall under the ADA umbrella. So we see that by providing commingled services that can meet both of these goals, we end up unlocking a large potential supply of vehicles that can then, de-risk this opportunity for transit agencies and hopefully make it into a modality in its own right. But yeah, we strongly believe in, a centralized planning platform, shared vehicles across modalities, and all of that configuration and power being provided to the fleet operators and the administrators.
Well, thank you for that. Catherine or Jeff, just jump in. I mean, this is really, really interesting stuff here that Alex is talking about. We were starting to stick out, toes in the water before I left as it relates to on-demand services in New York. And it certainly was a limited, unreliable supply. Maybe you guys could talk a little bit about maybe how your agencies, well, particularly Jeff, your agency, and I'm sorry, and Catherine, I don't see her any. Oh, there you go. How it affects your agency. Are you guys thinking about it? I'm sorry.
Well, we on demand is something that we talk about because we don't have the vehicles. And we just did a system redesign. It's something we want to do, but I'll speak on behalf of I work closely with our Louisiana Public Transportation Association. I know that up in Shreveport and in Baton Rouge, they really are doing very, very well with on demand, and we are looking to them for best practices. For example, especially in the small urbans or large rurals, like on demand makes a lot of sense for them because running buses struggling with the maintenance issues, and it's something we'll look at too. But we have a huge fleet. We have a fleet problem that we need to fix first before we bring in on-demand vehicles. But I see it as a very promising, especially when you're looking at operating funds. The woman who was speaking just before us, we are struggling with operating funds, and in order to us to go to the state to meet the gap that the federal government isn't providing us, we need to figure out what are transportation's tools that will work across the entire state of Louisiana. And we think on demand is one of those things that we can partner with more rural agencies that don't have the same fixed route needs as us, or definitely would never be transitioning over to electric buses because they just don't have the demand or the capacity. But on demand is kind of, to me, it seems like a unifying transportation modality that can cross for us in Louisiana, the rural, small urbans, and our urban area.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Jeff, anything to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's, really appreciate like all of the work that companies like the Routing Company are doing to being able to provide access to those who don't have as good access to transit and giving more real-time scheduling to do so. At Cat Metro, and when I was at Cat Metro in Austin, what we did and a lot of agencies are doing is we had, micro transit zones that allowed for on-demand services. So we'd have, vehicles strategically placed that then, using, Alex, you might laugh at me because I'm not going to explain anything well enough technology, but had the right algorithms in place to dynamically schedule rides within those zones so people could get picked up within a certain, in our time frame, within 10 minutes of service, but within a fairly small zone. Here at WMATA, one of the things in our ADA paratransit, customers, who now and by, ADA regulations, you have 24-hour reservation system, and that's difficult. It's difficult for folks to always have to be planning 24 hours ahead of time. And we would like to be able to give those dependent riders who need access to transit the ability to ride like all of us and have on-demand scheduling and get picked up. So we are working differently to have a bunch of different providers out there and kind of a network of vehicles that then we could tap into and schedule and provide some on-demand services. That's something that we are working on. That is it's something that's going to take time, but hopefully we can move towards more on-demand travel, just like we would have for just regular fixed route service.
One thing I should have mentioned, we actually did a pilot for on-demand. I think in 2020, it was during COVID. It was a HOPE grant. So we actually learned quite a bit from that. It was a HOPE grant that was it the Persistent Poverties grant. So we focused on a specific neighborhood, New Orleans East, which is pretty far, and the service out to that area isn't as great. So that folks and we partnered with our health system. So if you were going to doctor's appointments, you could, if you lived in that neighborhood, you could, and met some other criteria, you could go to specific doctor's appointments with these community health center providers. And that went really well. It was a 1-year pilot, and we're using that learning as we build out the future of our program.
I want to add, maybe it's a question. I know when we started it back, I don't know, sometime like 2017, sort of to defray cost on fixed route and what have you, we found that it became somewhat of a cost driver because it became so popular. The unit cost per trip was much less, but it became so popular, so we had to rein it in. Any thoughts around that or experiences around that since a guy like me has retired?
I can jump in on the tech side. This is why at the routing company we're really focused on squeezing out as much efficiency from each vehicle as possible. Because you're right, the service can become extremely popular and you need to have ways to throttle demand. Unfortunately, dynamic costing or dynamic pricing isn't available in a lot of areas, and so you really only fall on managing higher supply or having you end up with higher wait times because the vehicles are just so saturated with demand. What we've noticed is that user or riders will typically learn and become comfortable with this behavior. So one of our highest productivity fleets in Andorra, they are sky high in demand, way more than it can handle, and then people start learning and understanding when it's most available to them and when it can be something they can take, even though by law right now it's still offered for free. So yeah, high vehicle utilization is in the right supply demand balance is really crucial.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we have to manage it as well. Our Abilities Ride program is only it's a slow rollout because we want to make sure that we are to be able to provide the service that we're telling people. So we only have a limited number of vehicles available in that pool to do that. But the cost is a lot lower because it's a per trip cost and so it comes out to be a lot less than a regular 88-day transit trip.
One thing, in working with our partner up in Shreveport, De Niro, Shreveport, Louisiana, he's done really, really well. I think because of probably the politics and the population size, just a bunch of factors that play into the decision. It's gone well. And what he has actually done, he's gotten feedback that they shifted from like the minivan model to like a Dodge Charger model. So it feels more like car service. And so it doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like a low income service. And it feels more, I don't want to say luxury, but so it's more appealing. And so I think he's doubled his ridership, which is good for him because he gets more ridership, he gets more FTA dollars, and it works for him. And I think the other thing that works is, as we're all struggling with maintenance employees for our big buses, small folks, as long as they're getting vehicles that are made in America, they can partner with their local car dealership in a city like Shreveport or a smaller city like Alexandria and have some economic development and have some partnerships, and then even get those vehicles maintained in the interim while we're figuring out this maintenance dilemma at the car dealership, so that there is not that inconsistency with vehicle reliability that we struggle with in New Orleans.
Switching gears just a tad bit, Catherine, you talked about, this big bus issue and maintenance. Could you give me a little insight on that? Share that with us.
So I think we are probably in a very unique situation. We struggle with maintenance mostly because we probably 60 out of our 128 buses are past their FTA useful life, which is a problem.
Okay.
We have buses that are basically, duct taped together with bubble gum, rolling down the street, spewing black smoke. And unfortunately, that's because of Katrina. When Hurricane Katrina hit, our whole 372 buses were completely decimated. We did, with the help of TransDev, resize our service model because we lost a lot of population. We had a whole bunch of buses at one time. Unfortunately, they all aged out at the same time, and there wasn't a fleet replacement model in place. So we are still digging ourselves out of a hole because our buses are so old, raggedy, and broken. We have buses that are out of business. So our maintenance problem is compounded by folks not being able to find maintenance workers, but also the sheer volume of work that our vehicles need.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that insight. Just leave you with a quick comment about New Orleans. I was part of a team to lead 100 buses down there during the Hurricane Katrina. We drove, I think it was 100 cruisers, over the road buses down there to help in some of the recovery and FEMA activities. So it was my first time. No, I believe that was
one of the buses is still probably rolling.
Yeah, maybe I'll send you some pictures I came across recently.
Be a VIN number to see if it's still in service.
Yeah, wonderful. Hey, so I'm going to give it back to Ricardo for any audience questions, but I just want to say thank you. And it really is encouraging to make me know that there's so many smart people that's assisting in this industry. I'm so happy to meet all of you and look at the wonderful work that you're doing. The industry needs it as we look toward the future. So thank you for all the work that you guys do each and every day. Thank you. And Ricardo, I'll give it to you.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Yeah, I mean, this was again like an incredible panel. This is the last panel for today, so it was really like an amazing wrap up to like look specifically into one mode of transit, and especially a mode that, as Jeff already said, is gaining as much traction as rail in certain areas, and one that we can actually really work with because it's so malleable, it's so transformativable, difficult word. But basically, we can actually apply technology easily because there is less infrastructure that has to be changed. And there, really, Alex was very insightful on what the routing company is doing. And I know that there are multiple companies in the space working on this, but it's very impressive to see how they can actually offer integrated solutions to agencies that they can just plug and play and make use of their data to then actually optimize their service. So one question from Steve still is what the panelists, I think this goes more towards Jeff and Catherine, but Alex, feel free to chip in. What do you think about free fare transit? I know that for WMATA, like with your not set operational budget, that might be a bigger question, but yeah, that has been something that has been also around a big question in Boston itself. So it would be good to get your insights.
Yeah, I'm happy to start, Catherine, if you want. So I saw that question posted. I appreciated the free fare in quotes because it's not free fare. Nothing's free. It might be no cost to a rider fare. There's a cost to everything. There's a value to everything, and although fare recovery represents a small percentage of the total budget, it is important to us being able to manage our budget, especially operationally. Catherine mentioned, in her opening, talking about, just operational budget challenges, and the previous keynote speaker said that as well. We, particularly here at WMATA, we have no dedicated funding source. So we're reliant every year to get funding from our three jurisdictions, Maryland, Virginia, and DC, and it's a challenge. So we do need the fares that are paid. Fare evasion is very big, so a lot of people may think it's free to ride a bus here in DC. It's not, but yeah, it is something that I think we try to manage a fare that is one that is not restrictive to our customers. We have programs in place to help those that need assistance for reduced fare, half fares. We just started a new program that allows anyone eligible for SNAP benefits to be 50%. Of course, we have our seniors. We have free rides for students in DC. So there's a lot of programs to help those who may need assistance. But yeah, it is not something that we are looking to move towards here, because it is a part of what we think is a value to our system, and something that's part of our budget as well.
Yeah, I think we are at complete alignment there. We did lower during COVID. We did lower our rates, and we made it more affordable by introducing monthly passes for seniors, like for special populations. We are doing a fare study now because we're hoping to raise our fares, but we're also looking at introducing fare capping. We get a huge number of tourists as New Orleans, so people want to ride our St. Charles line. So how do we recover as much income that we can, that we need, that's unrestricted, that we can use for anything, frankly, and we need it, but also not make it so unaffordable for our riders. So one ways that we're exploring is looking at raising all of our rates and then doing fare capping for our local riders. So tourists would pay a higher percentage of our fare recovery. But I also believe, having done like a lot of social services work, I think that people value what they pay for, and it's really our job to give riders a service that they value, desire, and want, and will pay for, and that's our job.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is very true. It is interesting to see those two camps, though, between customers saying, "Oh, we want to have free transit," and those saying, "Oh, we want to have better transits. We are happy to pay more for it." I guess like making it really a pricing down to the individual and their circumstances is really the key here, as is in general like customization and really attention to the single rider. Yeah, please.
I was going to say, there's also a difference when you look at AASHTO has a great report on like level of state funding for transit agencies. Louisiana doesn't get any public transportation. Having worked in DC and in the Bay Area, I rode BART and I rode the Sound Transit line. A lot of cities have state funding that can offset the cost, so that so every transit system isn't created equally. So you really have to look at the funding structures. It sounds like WMATA is in a similar situation to us. We just don't have any funding. But I worked for the city of Seattle for a long time. They had voter-approved ballot initiatives to fund public transit. So in that situation, it's a completely different operating environment. So when you think about free fares, it's a much more doable process and a possibility there than it is a place like Louisiana.
Yeah. Latching on, I just wanted to give one more question sometime, and then we'll have to wrap up, unfortunately. But one question specifically for Alex, I think. Someone asking who is taking on-demand transit and has experienced long and unpredictable waiting times, what can you ensure that on-demand transit can match the predictability and reliability of scheduled transit?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good question. So, we know that fixed line transit in high volume corridors is going to almost always be more efficient, let alone the speed and lack of traffic or anything, just people knowing how to take it and the dependability, and it's a learned process. And that can really drive people away from, just even buses with like poorly marked bus stops, because they're unfamiliar with how to use the system. And so it becomes an even more challenging part when there's, this interactive system introduced. So It really does come down to service design and communicating that quality of service to the rider. As as Jeff said, that there is a huge bump in demand when you start offering these services, and you have to continue balancing, what your fulfillment rate, how many requests you're actually going to service, and balance that with the waiting times, acceptable amount of delay, acceptable amount of in-car time, such that you can continue providing service in general. And so it really comes down to a service design. Do you either want, dependability on, and I'm talking about a very saturated market as they tend to become, but do you want to have, predictable, service, as in I'm going to be picked up, or do you want to have, predictable wait times, and that quality of service? What we do at the routing company is use a combination of very rigid constraints with a few set of different relaxed or softer constraints, such that you can say that everybody that you are servicing is going to be serviced within this convenience level, within this quality. So wait times, delays, whatever else we'd want to constrain the model to be. But yeah, it comes down to managing expectations and managing your supply, and if possible, the price of the service to throttle demand at times. Unlike, I think there's a lot of parallels drawn between on-demand modes of transportation, like public on-demand transit, versus like Uber or Lyft or these other like rideshare players in the market. However, the big difference is that Uber is not buying vehicles, or needing to set aside a multi-year budget for their vehicle supply to service their anticipated demand. If you see a demand surge in Uber, they can respond with supply side incentives to get more drivers on the platform, and they can also raise prices to throttle that demand. And that's not something that public transit typically has access to on like day of services. What I've seen with like MTA and other agencies is they're starting to use a broker-based model, where they can introduce flexible rides, say from Uber or other third-party providers, to potentially service the overflow trips that aren't serviced within the constraints by dedicated supply. And I think that that probably has the most promise of maintaining a level quality of service when you end up with this peak demand problem like Jeff described. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's sort of how I see it going.
Yeah, no, I think this is very valuable. I think this different, like once you hear like an on-demand service, you always automatically think about Uber, and you don't think that the fleet is actually limited. Like there is actually a limited amount of cars that can actually be provided by a transit agency. So I think that distinction is really important to note, and also very insightful to hear from you, like working on it daily, how that plays out. I think at this point,
Ricardo, can I just touch on one thing that I think Alex made a very good point too, is managing expectations. I think that's so key for us and as a whole, is manage expectations. So we're not over promising and we're not underserving, but we are being accurate with what we deliver. And so, across the board, fixed route through on demand and other services, is that we manage expectations. And I think that's what alleviates so much like angst and heartburn and fear of using transit, is that they don't, if they don't feel something's reliable, they can't trust the information, then it becomes harder to use. And so we have to set our metrics and our KPIs in ways that we strive to meet those, and we don't set them, and we keep working to that, but we also manage it well enough so that we provide the right service and manage our riders' expectations to be able to get the service when they want the service or need the service.
Power users will typically become very accommodating to that, because they understand those trade-offs. They're taking this every day, or 2-3 times a week to get to dialysis, and they understand that trade-off, just like if they were going to walk to a bus and wait for the bus, or maybe they can't even do that, and they tend to take that into account versus more of a a general user trying to use DRT like they would use rideshare.
Yes, just a
Wayne,
quick,
please.
yeah, just quick housekeeping. Just full disclosure, I do sit on the advisory board for the routing company, and there's been no compensation or anything like that for TDC for their representation here. So a little house cleaning. So thank you, Alex, for the presentation. Daryl Irick, best boss ever. I learned buses as a business with you with New York City Transit. You really got out of the game too early, and I sort of follow suit, but yeah, maybe you'll get back in shortly. Catherine, last I would say to you, Transportation Diversity Council has an excellent educational program with the trades. I was talking to predecessor Alex Wiggins previously to set up some, discussions about how we work in the trade. So I'd like to maybe get with you and Lona
Yep.
to talk about some of the options we have in our education suite. So, but it's an excellent panel, and thank you, Ricardo. I'm sorry I missed the prep sessions. I was out of the country for a period, so but it's very nice. Thank you.
Dwayne,
Much.
Ricardo is awesome because I've been out of practice for 5 years, man. So he had to dress me up. He told me what shirt to wear and everything.
Very good.
I did not get that email. So
I think you spiced it up. But yeah, perfect. Well, with that, I think thank you very much to everyone here on the panel. This was an amazing day so far. We'll go over to honorees and awards and the trivia as well. So please stay on if you want to win some transit-related prizes. But yeah, thank you so much to Jeff Hyatt from WMATA, Catherine Bush-Felton from Norta, and Alex Waller from the Riding Company, and Daryl Eric. This was amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And yeah, we'll just do a short 2-minute breather, and then we'll give it over to Moji for the trivia.